Hello everyone and welcome back to the Left Bench Podcast, the show where we can't play sports, so we talk about them instead. It is so great to be back in the studio, recording another episode. I want to thank you to each and every one of you who continued to watch my videos, even when I was on this break. I apologize for the time that I did take off. I was kind of deciding how I was going to set forth this next episode. With the NFL draft coming up, I really wanted to do some cool things, and in all honesty, besides yesterday, there hasn't really been a lot of sports news, so it was a little bit difficult to come up with topics to write, but today I am back, and we have a lot to talk about. Today's episode is a special one because today is April 22nd, the day before the NFL draft, and I haven't actually put out a mock draft yet. So today will be the official Left Bench Podcast 2020 mock draft, and I'm really excited to show you what I've got here. But first, we're going to talk about some breaking NFL news. So thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you have already went on Instagram and followed us at the Left Bench Pod so you can stay up to date with updates concerning the channel and also just enjoy a great community of people and a great pool of content. But with all that out of the way, let's dive into that breaking news. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers acquired Rob Gronkowski from the Patriots in a trade. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave up a 4th-round pick for the formerly retired tight end and received Rob Gronkowski as well as a 7th-round pick from the New England Patriots. And when you look at this trade, it's actually really interesting because Rob Gronkowski almost didn't stay on the Patriots in the first place. 2 years ago, after 2017, after many conversations, Rob Gronkowski explained that he was actually about to be traded to the Detroit Lions. And he did what most Detroit Lions players do, and that's retired. He did not want to play for that garbage organization, and I can't blame him because Detroit is always a dumpster fire when it comes to sports, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the NFL, but that's aside the point. You see, Robert Gronkowski chose not to be traded by actually retiring, and in doing so, it meant that he stayed with the Patriots, and the Patriots still had control of his contract for another 2 years, meaning that the Patriots still had the ability to trade him or hold on to him or keep him from going to any other team. And so this means that in this trade, the Patriots have completely given up their rights to Rob Gronkowski, and as soon as he passes a physical, he will officially be a player on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, if you've been on social media recently, you'll notice that when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all of a sudden, they have fans now. They have Tom Brady, they have Rob Gronkowski. Bandwagoners are flooding from every team in the NFL, just trying to have a team that's actually good for once in their lives. And people believe that this Tampa Bay team is going to be one of the greatest of all time. I've seen tons of posts on Instagram and tons of sports analysts on YouTube saying that this offense is unstoppable, that they're going to the Super Bowl, there's no way defenses can cover it, that Tampa Bay is going to win a Super Bowl with head coach Bruce Arians, quarterback Tom Brady, with the 2 amazing wide receivers of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and now 2 amazing tight ends in Rob Gronkowski and O.J. Howard. How could they not win a Super Bowl? You see what this reminds me of? Last year. If you remember last year, the talk of the town was the Cleveland Browns. They were going to be the Super Bowl winners. They were so great. They have OBJ and Jarvis Landry, and Baker Mayfield's going to do awesome, and their O-line's going to get better, and their defense is better with Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams, and Jabril Peppers and safety from the Giants, and Olivier Vernon, and they're going to be stacked and amazing, and the Browns are going to do everything. And they sucked. Went 7-9. It was a waste of a season, completely. Baker Mayfield took a step back. Odell Beckham, as I've talked about in the last episode, did absolutely nothing. Jarvis Landry was pretty good. Nick Chubb was pretty great, but other than that, the team was pretty much garbage. And that's what's funny, is that at the beginning of the season, we tend to have these aspirations for teams. We see loaded rosters, and we think, wow, they're going to be great. Another team last year that was really hyped up was the Philadelphia Eagles. People said the Eagles were going to go to the Super Bowl again. They have the most talented roster ever. Minnesota Vikings, they have an incredibly talented roster. But if there's one thing we have to realize when it comes to sports is a talented roster means nothing. You can fill a team with talented players. You can put tons of great wide receivers, tons of great running backs and quarterbacks and defensive players all on the same team, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. Because a huge part of sports is about chemistry, and it's about teamwork, and it's about playing together. And that was the exact problem the Browns faced last year. And something else that a player can't really control is their coaching, their scheme. You can have the best quarterback and receiver in the entire world, but if your coach only wants to run plays, then you're not going to do anything. It won't matter. You need a good system, and you need great players, and you need great chemistry. Those are the things that make up championship teams. And the problem last year with the Cleveland Browns was that they had great talent, but they didn't have great coaching, and they didn't have great chemistry. Like I talked about, Odell was always complaining that he didn't get the ball. There was no chemistry between Baker Mayfield and Odell. They didn't have a good run scheme, and they didn't really have a good passing scheme either. They weren't put together. So the challenge that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have to overcome is, can they come together as a team? Can they unite under Bruce Arians as a head coach and that entire staff and that entire organization and come together and play well? And the hard part is, because of the coronavirus and because of these situations, Tom Brady hasn't even met Chris Godwin and Mike Evans in person yet. They haven't even got together as a team whatsoever. They're going to have to do this all online. So that chemistry that's normally built during the offseason is lacking. They might not even have a chance to do that. So this Buccaneers team is already at a huge disadvantage because of how many new pieces they're adding. And something else that might be an issue that I was thinking about is Tom Brady and Gronk have this connection. When Tom Brady's in trouble for the last 8 or so years, he throws to Gronk. If something's going wrong, he passes the ball to Gronk. If he needs a safety blanket, he passes the ball to Gronk. So how is he going to shift from that being his main priority and his main target to now having deep threat wide receivers? Because at the end of the day, this is really going to be a test on Tom Brady and no one else. Because Tom Brady's complaint last year was that he had no weapons, he had no team around him. Well, now he's got it. He has every weapon possible at his disposal. The only thing possible that he could be missing is a great running back. But he has pretty much everything else. His defense may have stepped down, but other than that, pretty much everything about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was perfectly suited for Tom Brady. So the real question is, will Tom Brady regress, or will he hold the Super Bowl form that he's had for so many years? My bet is he's going to regress. I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be a great team, but I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl. I really don't. I see them at best going 11-5, the very best, and at worst going 8-8. And that's very much a possibility. We'll see how things end up shaping up. As I mentioned, the NFL draft is tomorrow, and things are really going to shape up for the league when the draft rolls around, because that's kind of when we figure out really where teams are looking to improve and how their teams are going to improve for next season. So what I want to do is give you guys my mock draft for tomorrow's NFL draft. Before we get started, just a couple of things to note. This is not what I want to happen. This draft is simply my prediction of what I think is going to happen tomorrow night. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to go through picks 1 to 20, not really any further, because once you get past pick 20, it's kind of impossible to tell what teams are going to do. This draft won't include any trades because those are really hard to predict as well. It'll just be focusing on those first 20 picks. I'll list the person that they're drafting and where they're from, and I'll talk about whether or not the pick is a good pick or a reach, and then I'll dive into my personal thoughts about the pick or what I think they could have done better. So without further ado, let's get into the first pick in the NFL draft. And with the number 1 overall selection, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU. At this point, no one should be surprised by this pick. Pat McAfee actually went on his show earlier this morning talking about how Joe Burrow has already got a call from the Bengals basically saying he's in. He is the number 1 draft pick. This is one I guarantee I won't get wrong. The Bengals need a quarterback, and they're going to put Joe Burrow there. Personally, I don't think Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the draft. I think Tua is. But because of injury concerns, it's a safer bet to take Joe Burrow than it is to take Tua. So I think this is a good pick. It's obviously not a reach. It's the number 1 pick, and it's the number 1 prospect. Moving on to number 2, the Washington Redskins select Chase Young, edge rusher out of Ohio State. And this is another great pick. This is probably my favorite player in the entire NFL draft. I think Chase Young is going to be amazing. I think he's going to be one of the best defensive players in the league for a little bit, and I'm excited to see what he does. Ohio State produces some great players on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. The Redskins don't really have a great defense, and they're going to be playing against some really, really good offensive lines next year, including the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Giants will hopefully be trying to fix their offensive line. So they're really going to need some good defensive linemen in order to counteract that. This is a great pick, not a reach at all. I love it. Moving on to the 3rd overall selection, and with the 3rd overall pick, the Detroit Lions select Jeff Okudah, cornerback out of Ohio State. Now, I've seen a couple of people saying that the Lions are going to go for a defensive tackle or some other prospect, but Jeff Okudah is an amazing player, and Jeffrey Okudah is the top cornerback in the entire draft. And since the Lions traded away Darius Slay, they really need a great number 1 corner. The replacement for Darius Slay that the Lions chose, being Desmond Trufant, is a great corner, but he's not going to be able to lock down the field in the same way that Darius Slay did. Jeff Okudah is going to be great for that secondary. It's really going to help them. They're going to have to deal with a lot of really good offenses next year, being in the NFC North, and I think this is something they really need. But moving on to the Giants with pick number 4, the Giants select Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle from Alabama. And this is my first reach. I think what the Giants should have done here is trade down, get lower in the draft, and pick an offensive tackle then. Picking an offensive tackle this high in their position really doesn't do a lot for them. And they could also use a lot of help on other sides of the ball. I think on defense they're going to be great, but the Giants are going to mess it up. They're not going to choose Isaiah Simmons. They're going to let him fall in the draft. They're going to end up picking Jedrick Wills, and it's going to be a mistake. Sure, he'll help their offensive line, but they could have waited. They could have done this a lot better. Moving into the 5th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select quarterback Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama, and this is a perfect pick. I love this pick. I think he's going to do fantastic on the Dolphins. He's a lefty QB. He had fantastic stats in college. He played great. If it wasn't for the injuries that he ended up having, he'd be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. The Dolphins got away with a steal on this one. I don't see them trading up or down whatsoever. I think this is a great pick, and it's going to serve them very well. But now, moving on to the Chargers with the 6th overall pick, they select Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon. Now, I could rant about Justin Herbert all day. Justin Herbert is not a refined quarterback. He has a great arm, but he doesn't have very good mechanics at all. He's more of a thrower than a passer. He's lacking a lot of important attributes of a quarterback in the NFL system. I think this is a mistake on the Chargers. I really hope that in the draft they end up trading with the Lions, moving and taking Tua, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to take Justin Herbert, and he's not going to be a good fit, and he's going to be a bust and not really last very long in the NFL. This is definitely a reach. I think they could have went with a lot of other options. I don't know why they made this choice. But now moving on to the Panthers with the 7th overall pick, they select Isaiah Simmons, linebacker out of Clemson. Beautiful pick. Beautiful pick. I really, really believe that he should have been taken earlier in the draft. I hope that the Giants take him early, but I don't think they're going to. I think he's going to end up coming with the Panthers. I really, really think this pick is going to pay off for the Panthers in the long run. They need a great defensive stud. They've lost 2 key pieces on their defensive linemen, so a lot of people have them taking a D tackle here. But I think when it comes to their linebacker core, after the loss of Luke Kuechly, plugging in another linebacker there can be awesome. And Isaiah Simmons has played some D tackle as well as even some cornerback in his time over at Clemson. And so really, wherever they put him, he's going to shine. This is a great pick. Moving on to number 8, the Cardinals select Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Iowa. I believe that Tristan Wirfs is better than Jedrick Wills, and I think he's going to be a great offensive lineman, and the Cardinals need an O-lineman. They're putting together a really solid team, kind of quietly, besides DeAndre Hopkins obviously being a huge event, but they really are starting to get a better team. But what they need is someone to protect their little tiny boy, Kyler Murray. Hopefully this is a short enough offensive lineman for him since he can't see over his lineman in the first place. Now, moving on to number 9, we have the Jaguars, who are going to select Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama. Best wide receiver in the class. The Jags are going to use him great. Him plus DJ Chark are going to be an awesome receiving core that Gardner Minshew should have some fun with. I don't think they're going to be very good next year, but this is going to be a receiver that's going to last them a long time, and I think will end up being a top 10 receiver in the NFL if all goes well. Moving on to the Browns at number 10, they select offensive tackle Andrew Thomas, Georgia. And man, this is a reach. I mean, honestly, this is a reach. Mekhi Becton is better in most regards. But the reason why I don't think they're going to end up choosing him is just because he's from a smaller school, being Louisville. So they're going to end up going with the tackle from Georgia being Andrew Thomas. And he's going to end up working out okay for them, I think, for the most part. But I think the Browns could have really waited on this pick, traded down, got something a little bit better, got more return for their actual pick itself. So we'll see what ends up happening there. The Jets at number 11, they're going to take Mekhi Becton, steal him right under the nose of the Browns, take him from Louisville, get something else to protect Sam Darnold. He's really going to need it so he stops getting hit in the face all the time. But now moving into more of the fun picks that aren't offensive linemen, the Raiders at number 12 select CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Oklahoma. Great pick. I love it. The Raiders don't really have any big receiving threats. We'll see how the quarterback battle ends up working down in Las Vegas between Derek Carr as well as Marcus Mariota. And I think either quarterback who comes out on top is going to love having CeeDee Lamb to throw to. Josh Jacobs is going to continue to develop, and it's going to be awesome to see those main offensive pieces play together. Now at number 14, we have the Buccaneers. And I think the Buccaneers are going to select Derek Brown from Auburn. He slipped pretty far in this draft, and I think it makes sense for the Bucs to take him. But at the same time, I don't. They have so many other options, and honestly, what I believe the Buccaneers should do here, which they aren't, I can guarantee you they aren't, but I think they should draft a quarterback. I want you to imagine for a second if somehow the Buccaneers were able to trade up with the Lions and draft Tua. Imagine that. Tua Tagovailoa being the backup QB of the Buccaneers, learning from Tom Brady, practicing with Gronk and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. He'd be a stud. Even if you draft someone a little bit different, if you draft Jordan Love, he would be amazing under Tom Brady. But alas, I don't think they're going to end up doing that. They could also use a running back. Jonathan Swift could be a good take here, but again, I really think they're going to play it safe on this pick and go with Derek Brown. Moving into the Broncos at number 15, they need a wide receiver, and they're going to draft Justin Jefferson, wide receiver LSU. This is a reach. This is a big reach. Justin Jefferson is not top 15 talent. He should go way lower in the draft, but he's the best receiver available at this time, and the Broncos need a receiver. He'll probably be great for them, but this is a reach. Moving a little bit further to the Falcons, at number 16, stealing from the Cowboys, they select cornerback C.J. Henderson. This is who I wanted the Cowboys to draft. I'll be really happy if they do, but they're not going to. I really wish they would, but the Falcons are going to steal him. The Falcons need a cornerback. They just got rid of Desmond Trufant. They pretty much have no one in their secondary. If they want to be relevant next year, they need to improve those pieces. I could also see them taking a free safety here, maybe Xavier McKinney, but they're going to end up taking C.J. Henderson from Florida, and I think he'll be great for them. He'll really improve that secondary. Atlanta's going to need a good defense because they already have a great offense. Moving further to my boys, the Dallas Cowboys at number 17. They're going to end up drafting Kayvon Chaisson, edge rusher from LSU. That's pretty much how I feel about this. I don't think he's going to be very good. He just hasn't seen enough playing time, but the Cowboys are going to draft him because for some reason, we love drafting linemen this year. We love just talking about linemen, picking up as many in free agency as possible. We just want all the linemen. Just give them to the Cowboys because they're begging for them constantly. I'm not going to be happy about it, but that's what we're going to take. People are thinking we're going to take a safety. We don't really need a safety. I don't know why we draft one at this point. We did last year, but now we have tons of safeties. We have more safeties than we need. So I don't really see that happening. Moving on, the Dolphins at number 18 draft Xavier McKinney, safety from Alabama. They got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. They need a great safety. He's a plug-and-play fit. He'll do awesome. The Raiders at number 19 take Christian Fulton, cornerback from LSU, to improve that secondary. It's what they really need. They need a speedy cornerback. The one they got from the Texans last year isn't really paying off, so we'll see how this works out for them. And lastly, at number 20, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Javon Kinlaw, interior D lineman from South Carolina. The Saxonville defense has declined since their AFC championship. They need something there, and Javon Kinlaw will be a great piece to really spice it up. So that's it for the 2020 NFL Draft. If you guys are planning on watching tomorrow, make sure afterwards to go ahead and DM me on Instagram and tell me how wrong I was or how right I was. And after the draft, the very next day, hopefully we'll be able to make another episode and we'll come back and debrief this draft, talk about where I was right, where I was wrong, compare the picks, and then we'll actually see how the picks in the NFL Draft, how I think they're going to end up turning out. So at the end of the day, the Buccaneers are a strange team, and the NFL Draft is going to be a blast. So I hope you all enjoyed listening to this episode because we may not be starters, but at least we can play left bench.